This is the first time we're doing this with you, and I hope there will be a lot of things that we're gonna discover. That's something that I don't know about you, although we've know each other for about a year. Is that the correct date? Some about a year ago. You've sent me
Yeah, I think
that
I emailed
famous
you.
email that we posted about.
I sent you the infamous, famous cold email, I think December 7th of 2023. So we're approaching our 1 year anniversary. Should probably do something for that.
I thought about introducing you as my guest, and I thought what angle I would take. Whether I wanted to start that Kevin is one of the best content writers that I know, or that Kevin is one of the best entrepreneurs that I know. So, can you give me a bio of yourself? And I'm curious to see what angle you gonna took.
Yeah. I am Kevin Greene. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, Mountain Strong. I think I'm a writer, an entrepreneur, a brand builder, creative.
Mhm.
I'm not sure I define myself as just one. Um, I left college at an early age and kind of got into the startup world in my early 20s. Kind of hopped around from startup to startup, and that was kind of my education growing up. Um, Eventually found out that I was pretty good at cold emails. People would just respond to my outreach when I would reach out to them, and I got pretty good at it. And eventually started Inbox Ventures, which was a cold email agency that I ran and have been running for the last 4 years. And then in December of last year, sent a cold email to you. You responded, and we eventually started buyWords together. And that's why we're here now. So yeah, kind of a hybrid of a writer, entrepreneur, brand builder, and I guess that's me.
Interesting that you started with where you were at, or like that you were from Asheville. Like, do you think like the generally the way you grew up, or just generally the state that you're in, or the city that you're in, impacted the way you've kind of you know like who you are as an entrepreneur, as the writer? Like, was that something related?
Um, no, so I live in Asheville now, but I grew up in a place called Sandwich, Massachusetts, on Cape Cod. Um, just a beach town. Cool place to grow up. I wouldn't say that there was anything that I took from Cape Cod and then that turned me into an entrepreneur or made me want to become a copywriter. I don't want to give too much credit to Sandwich High School, but uh, um, but yeah, I think more so now living in the mountains, it kind of like as a writer, it allows me to kind of like I live in a very relatively remote town up in the
Hmm.
mountains, and I'm away from kind of like the hustle and bustle of the city, which is good and bad. But it allows me to be creative and focus. So uh, where I live now in Asheville, I feel like I'm in the perfect place as a entrepreneur slash copywriter. So
You mentioned that you've been between the jobs, tried different stuff, tried to start up the tech, and then you've decided to move on and start your own thing. What was that final stroke or the ticking point where you decided that, all right, I'm just gonna go ahead and gonna do my own thing? Was there like the money there more as the reason, or there were like a personal thing that you don't want to work for someone? Like, different people have their own thing. For the main reason
yeah,
for starting it.
um, I just like think I'm not very good at drinking the Kool-Aid of like different companies and being an employee. And this might come back to haunt
Hmm.
me in like a decade if I need to go try to find a job or something. But like, I'm definitely not a great employee for like
Hmm.
scaling companies. I like the early employee, like I'm part of a team of five or something. That's fun. Um, but I realized that like I'm going to be a lot happier if I just worked for myself and I didn't have a boss and I got to do like kind of things on my own terms, fail on my own terms, but also succeed on my own terms, own
Right.
those wins, also own those losses. Like to be able to bet on myself completely is like what gives me energy. Like I never want to
Mhm.
bet on someone else when I'm like at stake. So uh yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I was confident and ready to take a bet on myself, and had been in startups up until that point for like the seven previous years. So I was learning a ton. I got like a Harvard degree just by like jumping from different startup to different startup and learning from these founders. So um, I felt ready, and I felt like it was time to take a bet.
Can you share with me one of the latest startups that you've been part of, and the lesson that you learned from it, or generally the describe to me the Harvard degree that you've and what was that degree about?
Yeah. So the longest one I was at is a company called Rhinobird. Um, and I worked for a guy, Felipe, super cool dude, CEO, founder, and I was kind of just his right hand man. So I got to
Mhm.
watch him grow the business, and got to like sit in on the meetings with him and go into the partnership calls, and kind of just got to watch him work. And the coolest part about that whole experience is we got to go through Techstars. So for three
Mhm.
months, we got to fly out to LA, and I went through the Techstars Music Accelerator and got to work with more startups there, and just kind of like see how a founder operates and see how much they grind, and get advice from mentors and different partners. So um, that was like an experience, a 3 year experience where I just felt like it was priceless for me. To one, be this guy's right hand dude and kind of learn from him, but also fly out to LA, live there for 3 months, get that experience. It was really, really cool.
And you worked as a writer back then for him, right? Was the
Yeah,
what
dude,
was the
it
role?
was the best job. It was like one, I just got to follow him around and kind of just like be in the meetings with him, but I also
Right.
essentially was his ghostwriter. So he'd be like, "Kevin, we need to book a call with Red Bull or Manchester City or
Mhm.
ESPN, the NFL, whoever, right?" And I was just pretending I was Felipe and would write these emails and then send them out and book the meetings. Um, and we booked a ton of like we got Manchester City as a client, like Coldplay, the band. I got in touch with them. Like we were just booking meetings with some pretty sick brands left and right. Um, so yeah, I essentially was an internal cold email agency at Rhinobird, and got to do that for 3 years, and then also got to go to LA. So it was cool.
All right. So before I move on to anything else, I need to ask you this. Like, what is so good about your emails? Like, you've mentioned that you start noticing that people start replying to my emails, and now you say like, I booked with Coldplay and so other things. Like, what is so special about your email that it works really well?
Dude, nothing. Like it shouldn't be. I don't think it's that hard.
Hmm.
My mom's a psychologist. I think I have a decent amount of emotional intelligence. Like I think I have a good feel for that like human connection, right?
Hmm.
And I just put that into my emails. Like everyone always wants to know like what your special sauce is. Like I don't have a playbook, I don't have a framework. There's not some like repeatable process that I'm always using. It's kind of just like a feel. And I know it's a crappy answer, but like there's nothing that I'm doing over and over again. It's just like write like a human, sound conversational. When I reached out to you,
Hmm.
all I did in my head was like, okay, let me look at this guy's LinkedIn. Let me try to get a feel for his vibe. And it's like, all right, I think he would like this type of email just based on what I learned about you, and I send it. It's just a little bit of research, and just like at the end of the day, I want to send a message. If I'm writing to you, I want you to think like, oh, I could go have a beer with this guy. Like, oh, I want to talk to this guy. I want to hang out with him. So it's really just like, not to sound like I'm in high school, but like trying to sound cool. Like, well, how do I write in a way that the person reading it is like, oh, this person seems interesting. I want to talk to them. Um, so there's nothing like, there's no framework I have. There's no playbook. It's just like
Hmm.
be a human, write conversationally, and ideally have a proposition or a pitch that like is compelling to the other person.
So, be direct, conversational, to the point. Um, write it as like in the high school that we're saying, right? Like
Well, I'm
trying
just like
to
just
be
like try
simple.
to try to sound like don't sound that's probably a bad description, but like just sound like a cool person, sound like someone
Mhm.
that people would be attracted to. Like that's kind of
Mhm.
like sound confident. People are attracted to confident, sound confident, you know? Like I'm a much more confident writer than I am a talker, you know? Like I can reach out to like this Richard Branson and feel a lot more confident than I would if I had to go talk to Richard Branson in person. You know, it's a totally different vibe. Like when you're writing, you can be whoever you want to be. You can be the most
Mhm.
confident person in the world. So leverage that as much as possible.
Um, who taught you to write like that, or like how do you get to the point, where you like have their own this unique, maybe not unique style, but generally like when you have this sense of okay, here's how I want to write, and here's what's gonna work for you. When was that initiation
Um,
for you?
Yeah, I think there's two different things there. When I was younger, I used to cold email people at like 10 years old. Like I would write emails to, or I'd write messages to my favorite athletes and hope to try to get a response. And they never responded. But back in the day, like the early 2000s, there'd be these websites that you could go to and you could be like, oh, send a message to like rookie quarterback Tom Brady and see if he responds. And I would like send these things. So from a young age, I was always trying to get in touch with people, and they didn't respond until I got a little bit older.
Mhm.
But I think I learned kind of that style and this like conversational approach. I worked for my first job was with a web development agency. No free ads, but 100 Danish, and they were really good. They had this like very quick email that they sent out to the masses, and it's how we like got all our business. And essentially all the email said was like, hey, I noticed that your website was a little bit old and antiquated. No pressure, but just wanted to let you know about these services. And it got a
Right.
ton of responses. So I learned then, it's like, oh, this email was 50 words long. It brought up a pain quickly, and then it was done, and that was it, and people were
Mhm.
responding. So that was probably the lesson that I learned, that like short, sweet, to the point, conversational, get in and get out, that converts.
And it's totally different from what the how marketers are usually writing emails, right? When you have someone from the marketing team, can you write an email and they're gonna give you a huge email with a lot of formalities and links and stuff and a long value proposition and talking about themselves a lot, and not
Well, yeah, that's the
engaging, right?
problem. It's like everyone has, rightfully so, like they have this awesome product and they want to talk about it and they think they need to say
Mhm.
every little thing about it, but like really your cold email like needs to say like at most two lines about what you're doing, and the rest should just be like the formalities, and then you're done. You know, like you can write a cold email in 5 sentences and get
Mhm.
responses. You don't need a ton of information. People are also going to go to the website, you know? Like I was not linking you to any of my stuff because I knew you'd see my Kev at inbox.ventures. You were going to go there regardless. So you
Right.
just have to trust that people are going to do the extra research to figure out more. You know, you don't have to tell them the whole story. You just have to get them to open the book.
Is this the psychology that your mom taught you, or this is like the books that you've read, or this is just experience talking?
Probably a little bit of everything, I would say.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say my mom like straight up taught me psychology. She was just like uh, a presence in my life, you know, and I kind of
Mhm.
learned my ways through that. She wasn't like sitting me down. It's like, all right, this is how you get into the mind of somebody else. You know, she wasn't doing that. But just being around someone who's just like so in tune with human emotions was definitely a very
Mhm.
useful thing growing up.
So the email approach that you're describing is something that I'm my personal favorite. It's a I call it direct messaging or direct. Basically, it's similar to how you are messaging to someone else, right? Like short, to the point. You know, sometimes you can just cut some words and just go straight with the verb or something. Been you know
Hmm.
been wanting to da da da, da, right? And you don't go the whole structure and stuff. So, do you think that just generally thinking about outreach as a I don't know, like industry, the channel, or whatever is happening right now is outreach? Do you think that we are like overcomplicating it with all this best practices to follow, unsubscribe links, cadences, sort of like, like the different structures. And essentially, we are thinking about this as the marketing channel instead of just knowing that this is a direct communication, like an opener or like like a messenger in a way.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn doesn't help with this. Like, I know we just launched buyWords, and I have to be more active on LinkedIn now. But like, there's
Right.
so much information out there because I think people just feel like they just need to keep saying stuff and saying stuff. And
Mhm.
saying something is very simple doesn't sell. You know, like it's way better to be like, oh no, cold email is like this crazy complicated thing. Follow
Mhm.
follow my playbook, pay $500 and you'll never not get a reply again. It's like you have to make it seem more complicated so you can sell it, right? But like, and I'm not trying to like call out people because I think there are really really talented writers out there and they have great strategies, but I just think like at the end of the day it's pretty straightforward. And I wrote about this the other day. Like the hard part of cold email is the product market fit, it's the message market fit. But like
Mhm.
writing something that sounds good isn't the hard part. That should be the easy part. And then it's about testing to find out which line like converts the best. And that takes time, right? Like you're doing your A B test, your ABCD test, and you're just trying to figure out, okay, what line is really going to convert with this exact audience. And that's where the hard work is. And the product market fit, that's on the product marketing team, the growth marketing team. That's more outside of what I do. But like
Mhm.
the fact that the art of like writing a compelling email that you read it out loud, it's like, oh, that sounds pretty good, and it's fluid. That part's not hard, and I think we've overcomplicated that part. The hard part is above the line with message market fit and product market fit, and that's way more of a team effort and less on a copywriter to figure out. That's the copywriter plus the growth marketing team plus the product market team all getting in a room and like ideating on things. But just to write a cold email that sounds nice shouldn't be that difficult. And it's crazy for me to say that because I have a business selling that, but like it's not that hard for me to do. So
Mhm.
yeah.
During your time with Inbox Ventures, who did you work with? Can you name drop some companies that you've created for?
Yeah, it's funny. In the beginning, like I wouldn't name it, and I thought it was like an unfair advantage because I never wanted like my competitors to be able to just go and like because I would do that. I would go look at like competitors and who they were working with if they put logos on their website, and then I would just reach out to those logos. So like I would just like talk about the types of companies that I worked for. So it'd be like we work with companies valued at $10 billion, and I would
Mm.
never say who. And I think a lot of people probably didn't believe me, and they're like, "This guy's full of crap," and he's not
Right.
telling the truth. But I eventually like many years passed and just started telling people because I just like I don't think the companies cared anymore, and it was fine. But
Right.
yeah, I worked. My biggest client and like the one that kind of like gets the most attention is Rippling. I worked for Rippling for like 3 years. On and off as they had projects, we'd go in and go out. So that was a really cool one. Um, they were like one of my like I think my third client. I definitely
Mhm.
made it seem like I had way more clients than I did. Uh, if they're watching this, apologies. But so yeah, like I worked with Rippling, I worked with CapChase, InstaWork, Lambda Test,
Wow.
done projects with ShipBob, um, Remote. I've done plenty of work with. Yeah, a lot of unicorns, and then like earlier
Yeah.
stage companies as they were coming up. So um, yeah.
What is writing like? Writing for those companies, or like, you're like, you look at this big brands, unicorns, they're growing, successful, their messaging is top notch, like everywhere, like wow, this is an amazing company. And then now you have, you creating this messaging for them and working for them, right? Like generally, are there any um you would say like you could say like guidelines or principles that everyone needs to follow from the writing team, for example, to adhere to those, like high end principles, or again, just generally like, yeah,
Like,
guidelines.
did they have any, like, frameworks or
Yeah, did they
benchmarks to
have like all
follow?
all these brands? Yeah, yeah, all these brands. Do they have something like that? If yes, what those? Just generally, if I am a um if I'm a writer or head of writing or just a business that wants to be better at writing, do I need to have some kind of guidelines or principles or anything that would help me to be like those guys, or it's just the matter of like just getting the best people that are talented and then they will figure this out? Or as an organization, I should set something up for them, for this writing team, for them to be successful.
For me, I think, like, there was always, especially in the cold email, like, people are hiring you not to do, like, a repetitive task. They want you
Hmm.
to kind of, like, do something very unique that they're not currently doing.
Mm,
So in my case, it was more so like, hey, uh, here's what we're currently doing. It's working okay. We want something fresh and unique. Like, go get after it. And when you're dealing with a unicorn, a company that has a ton of funding, they're willing to kind of just like take bets and be like, all right, let's see if you can create something that we're not seeing right now. So what you don't want to do is give them more of like what they're already doing. That would be a
right.
miss. It's like it was an opportunity to kind of be like, hey, this is your approach. This is my approach. Let's put them side by side and see how it works. And if my approach starts performing well, then they can kind of buy into me more and start um, retaining me for more months because they're seeing the conversion happen. So um, yeah, especially in my world, it's more like you have this unique thing, and we want to see
Mhm.
you spread your wings and go and try it.
I love that. So essentially it's a creative writing. It's for you to creatively look at the a certain problem or a certain market or a certain task and then see how you can solve it in another way or with
Yeah,
another angle, right? That
yeah. That's why I would say that's like people are outsourcing for two different reasons. It's either there is a repetitive task that they just don't have time for,
Mhm.
or there's a task that they want a different look at. They want a different perspective, right? That would be the two reasons, in my opinion, why a company wouldn't do something internally. It's like either we just don't want to hire someone else, or we just want someone to do this task that technically we could do, but we just don't have the time for it right now. Or it's like we want a completely fresh perspective. And it's important to find out as a creative, as a writer, like, okay, who are you working with? Are you working with people who are just trying
Right.
to outsource something so you can do more of what they already have, which is actually like it's easy, and it's if they'll pay you to do it, like great. But typically, like what I would suggest, if you're going to outsource it to a copywriter, a freelancer agency, right?
Mhm.
Like you want fresh perspectives, and you want to be able to test that and figure out if how they're doing it is better than the way you're doing it. So
All right. So you are one of the most creative people in writing that I know because you always come up with this
thank you.
genius ideas, fresh. It's like, even going to, again, buyWords page or Inbox Venture page, your two companies, like it's a top-notch copy, and everyone, you and then everyone who looking at the page, they're like, oh shit, I like the copy, I love the copy, I love the copy. So I think that based on my experience reading and using the copy that you wrote for me personally and generally across the board, it's a it's a lot of creative ideas, a lot of looking at things differently. So, how does this creation process look for you? How much you spend on the research versus how much you go and do your own ideation? How much is that just bam, 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 come up with ideas, and how much is that improving on the ideas that you have? Just talk, walk me through that. Maybe I learn something and be more creative.
Yeah, you have to. I like to look at it. There's like layers to this, right? And there's
Mhm.
down here is really, really, really good ideas. And like everything going down to this is there's a bunch of crap, right? And you have to write a ton and get a bunch of ideas out. And that's like digging. So, right, like you're just writing down in a journal, you're writing down, you're in your notebook, and all of that stuff is not going to get used, but you need to keep doing it because below that is all of like the creative work. So, um, for me, it's about just like understanding that in order to get, there's like 20% of my brain is like the gold, and I need to get the 80% out to get there, right? So there's always going to be really, really bad ideas and things that don't work out. And you're going to like cringe when you read some of the stuff that I put on paper. And I'm never sharing that
Mhm.
with clients. I'm probably never sharing it with you, but like you have to get that stuff out in order to get to the 20% of gold, right? So for me, like the process is like I have my journaling process where I'm just writing in my notebook, but I'm also just like with emails, I'm writing a bunch of different emails, and then until I get to a really good one. If you remember all of the time it took us with the website, like there was a lot of like iterations. Aura, who helped build it with us, right? Like we'd give a line, and then I'd come back the next day. It's like, nope, it's going to be this one instead, and it's just like this constant iteration. So it's knowing that it's okay that bad ideas are going to come out. You have to like let that happen, and then eventually uh, you're going to get to that 20% gold. So for me, it's just dig, 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 and eventually you get to the gold.
I
So
love
I'm,
it.
I'm constantly writing to like get bad ideas out. So when it's really time to get the good ideas out, I'm ready and prepared to go.
How much? So you're spending more time on the writing out, and then you think that where the research, how does the research comes into this? You do you spend a lot of time on the research, or the research is secondary in this way? The
What do you mean by
audience is
like this, the
primary.
research
So
about
it's
a
like,
client?
it's like, a good example is like a lot of writers that I know, they spend time on, researching more the product and learning the product, and then going into, the different technical nuances, and then going through a lot of different type of content that was already created, sort of like learning from all those things, and then putting that together and start executing. And yeah, so I was wondering what part of the journey is the research part for you, and then how much you're paying attention to the research versus, the creative work. Because as far as I know, the more you learn from what already exists, the more it stops you from generating new ideas, because you always sort of like just, kind of, um, going with the best practices in a way, like, right, you're not as original, as without knowing. So curious to see
Mm-hmm.
what you think about this.
Yeah. So my best examples are from like the cold email stuff that I do, right? I've been running this
Hmm.
agency for 4 years with Inbox Ventures. So like that's my most straightforward use case that I can use. Um, I spend a lot of time on the research on the website, but the big thing is like understanding what has been sent in the past that hasn't worked. So like I'll always ask clients to send me their emails that aren't converting. And
Hmm.
sometimes like understanding what isn't working allows me to go and be creative to figure out what does work. Um, so I'll rarely tell them to be like, hey, send me your highest, best performing campaigns. It's more so because I don't want that to influence my actual work, but I want to see like, hey, what have you tried that just hasn't converted? I take that and I'm like, okay, so I know for a
Mm.
fact this isn't working, and then I can come in and start to like craft the copy, knowing what doesn't work already. I think a lot of times what people do is like they look at uh, what's working and they just kind of create a carbon copy of
Yeah.
that, and it's really like not. I don't know why someone would pay me again to just like kind of copy what's already working. So for me, it's like try to create something very fresh, look at what's not working, and then deliver something new. So the research is a lot of just like looking at copy that hasn't converted.
Where AI comes into all of this. So it's like, one of the, and again, maybe, all right, let's go back to first, to, so just to get this, the timeline straight for the listener. So you run Inbox Ventures, successful agency, you work with this customer, you provide a service, and then talk about buyWords and why you decided to move to buyWords, and what is buyWords. Let's start with that. What is buyWords? We've already established the point that you send a cold emails. We've kind of come up with some ideas. Now then started the buywords. Now talk me through your thought process into the reason why you decided that buywords is that next big new thing that you wanted to pursue, and why.
Yeah, well, I thought subscription agencies in general were like becoming very popular, and the business models were very compelling. I think you and I talked about this in the beginning. Like, you look at a company like Design Joy,
Hmm.
excuse me, and like they're doing kind of a similar model to what we're putting out there. They're not doing any meetings. They're making a lot of money, and it's just like this: pay one monthly fee and request as many projects as you want, and we'll do them. And there's something about having a client on subscription month to month that just makes business a lot easier. And with Inbox Ventures, it was very, very hard to forecast clients. There wasn't many retainers. It was more like client would come in one month with a bunch of projects, but maybe the next month they wouldn't have as many, and then I'd
Hmm.
hear from them again in like 3 months. So it just, like, as far as forecasting goes, the business model that I was doing with Inbox Ventures just uh, wasn't good, and I knew that, and I wanted to
Hmm.
change. Um, so I'll step back. buyWords is a copywriting subscription agency. So you pay one monthly fee, and you can essentially request as many copy projects as you want per month. So you pay $3,700 a month, and you can request blogs, cold emails, ad copy, social posts, landing pages, website copy, whatever you want throughout that entire month. We have a team of writers that does that work for you, delivers it for you, and then if you want to retain us to the next month, it just automatically renews, and we just keep going. So we're essentially, for $3,700 a month, we're a team of like senior copywriters that you can request work for on demand, whenever you want. And yeah, we launched. I don't know when this podcast will get released, but we launched it live last week. Reception has been pretty good, and yeah, very excited for the future of buywords.
So the difference is specifically the business model. So with Invoke Ventures, it's a project based. Essentially, they have a project, they pay for it. There's no ongoing subscription. There's no sort of like commitment, so clients can stop getting the service. Basically, that's it, right? Now, with what they're trying to do um, with Bywords, and this is to for the listeners who are building their own agencies. So you're trying to
Mhm.
create a more predictable business model where you can forecast the revenue, and then you can have a certain predictable engagement with customer, like a small retainer or a subscription that they will be paying ongoing, month to month, basically. Is that correct?
Yeah, we just want
Yeah.
to, like, what's a simple enough fee per month
Hmm.
that a company could be like, okay, yeah, we'll give you that amount per month, and we'll also give you more projects per month because of that as well, right? So like,
Hmm.
I just have a feeling that if you give one number like $3,700 a month, people are more likely to keep renewing because they know, like, oh, it's going to renew in a month. Let me think about the projects that I
Right.
want to request for the next month, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if they come in and just buy two email sequences from me, and there's a price for that, and they buy it and they go, like, they're less likely to start thinking about what they're going to be doing with us the next month,
Hmm.
because it's just like a one-off thing. So we're trying to get away from like this one-off mentality with agencies, and especially with copywriters, and more get into this world of uh, request unlimited projects, pay one monthly fee, do that for 1 month, and then we go to the next month and we keep going. So how can we just make this cyclical and just roll over, and keep going month to month?
Right. But at the same time, let's say and this is something that I personally, and again, maybe we agree to disagree here, but what
Yeah.
I'm personally, you know, value Bywords for is the fact that it's a marketplace. So if I don't have $4,000 that I can spend a month on the writing, and I don't have, I don't need that. I need, one or two email copies. I need a couple of posts. Maybe I need an ad campaign that I'll be running. That's it, right? So it's not going to cost me
Hmm.
4K. Having access to the marketplace and being able to pay per, I think for me personally is important as the business owner, because like I don't need to budget this. So I need to budget 4K a month with my CFO, but I have my own card that has, let's say, $500 that I can spend on different R&D things, and I can say, okay, I can spend this much. So where do you feel like that generally? I see both business models is something that people would need, but your point is that more businesses, they just need this, like a part-time copywriting team that they can work with, that it can do a bunch of different projects, so they can pay one retainer and budget that. Is that the case?
Yeah, well, let's step back, right? So for people, I'm sure a lot of people watching this will understand the business model if they go to the website. But like, there's two pricing models, right? There's you pay $3,700 a month and you get unlimited projects, right? So you can request whatever you want. Then there's also you pay. It's called the pay per model, where you pay $99 a month, and that gets you access to the store. And then you enter buyWords, and now you have access to the store, and you can buy projects off the shelf, right? So maybe like an email sequence costs $500 or $750, and you can just buy that directly. Um, how I see the model and how like I picture this is the $99 subscription gets people's foot in the door, right? That's how we
Mhm.
get someone to like go do a test. And it's much
Right.
easier when I'm on a sales call to tell, to your point, it's like I'm talking to a VP of growth, and she's like, yeah, we might want to get involved here and do this, but we don't want to commit to the $3,700 a month just yet. It's like, okay, no problem. You pay $99 a month and just go buy one project, and like that's very simple and seamless, and see what you think. Um, for me, it's like a funnel. I do, as much as I like having both business models, I see it as the $99 subscription is just getting someone's foot in the door. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, like what's sustainable for us, in my opinion, is getting as many of these unlimited subscriptions going. But the $99 is like, it's one for people if, hey, we just have one project. We don't want to turn away someone just because they don't have a bunch of work. Like if you want to pay us to do one landing page, we'll do it, no problem. But it's more so like it's almost like a trial, right? Like pay $99 a month, pay for this project. And if you love it, maybe we can upsell you to the $4,000 a month or $3,700 a month package.
So I know that companies like Balkans have their own copywriting team, and they have all their processes and their own workflow. And often when I work on something and I'm not a part of the marketing team, I need to set up a request to get this done, and this might be pulled for like a month or a month and a half because they already have their own roadmap set up. So it's like, oh, we cannot do that in this cycle. We can do it in the next cycle. And I like shit. Like, it doesn't make sense for me just to wait, right? So what
Yeah.
I'm doing, and I'm again talking through the logic here, is like what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, I need to write it myself, but I have no idea how to write an ad copy or like a landing page but I need to run the test right now, but I have no idea. So what I'm doing, either I'm looking for a freelancer that is so complicated because like I mean, I was trying to find someone on Upwork, for example, or freelance.com. It
Hmm.
takes days, weeks, and a bunch of people bidding for your project, and then you need to choose from. It's just ridiculous, right? The alternative is going in AI. There's a lot of AI tools, and we have ChatGPT and trying to do that. I'm sure that people listening to this, they were going through the same motions. Like they need a project right now. They cannot wait for their team to do this. They don't have bandwidth to find their freelancer because it takes time. They don't have the preferred freelancers in place, or if they found it might be, not the best freelancer. And then they're going and approaching AI and trying to solve that same problem with AI, which at the end will give them a very moderate writing and a lot of anxiety or just a lot of stress with like, oh, this thing doesn't work, or giving and always chatting with ChatGPT, like, can you improve this, or can you add this, or I don't like this, and at the end of this, right? So what I'm seeing buywords as this alternative option where it basically simplifies the life for someone like myself, because then I can essentially have all the guidelines that I need my team to work on because I have those guidelines. I can share these guidelines with the writer or with the writing team. I can pay a very affordable price, which is $500, $750, $1,000, right? I don't need a long commitment, and someone will do that for me fast. So I set it up, I bought it, and then in 2 days, 3 days, I get it. And then I can just start incorporating that. And then I have revisions, I can work on the revisions, right? And this way, and there's no, it's a very simple transaction. Like I need someone very good to do something for me that is good, that I know it's outstanding and match the quality of the other thing that I'm working on. And there's no commitment and there's no like upfront cost. I don't need to budget anything. So like personally, like I believe this. Now, as I am using buyWords team and as I'm like, okay, you know, buyWords, can you write this and this and this? And by the way, this is what I'm doing. So I have an account at buyWords and I'm, ordering in and have my card connected and, we have a
Yeah.
team,
Great
writing for me
client.
basically. Yeah, that's yeah, exactly. That's because like I was so frustrated not being able to do that. But anyhow, as I'm doing this and I see that more and more of my copywriting needs are being taken care of by buyWords team, then the next thing is like, all right, the team is already writing a lot for me. I'm gonna have a lot more writing coming in. Um, it becomes very expensive, and I can package that, or I can sort of like pay now a retainer, and then that retainer could get me unlimited, right? So in this scenario, yes, I'm sure that the retainer is the best logical way, right? And then, I agree with you, as you mentioned, like this is like a certain like upsell or something, right? But I think like just the basic foundation for me is to be able to get something very decent, very quick, very affordable, and have that with someone that I can trust that's done that, right, in the
Yeah.
past, and that have a reputation to lose, right? Not just like, oh, they didn't do a good job. Well, no one knows about this, right? Rather like, or you're gonna have a review on the freelance website or whatever, right? But rather like, oh, they need to business to run.
Yeah, I think you're describing like the exact process for how like the flow will work. If you think about, I won't name names, but if like you think about our longest standing client right now at buyWords, they
Mhm.
started with one project. Then the next month they brought in two projects. The month after that they did five projects. Eventually, it was not a cost-effective move for them to keep paying the $99 subscription because they were going to surpass the 3,700. So then they upgraded to $3,700 a month, and now they're on the unlimited plan. And now they're approaching like a time where they're thinking like, hey, there might be like a path to do uh, two projects at once. So maybe there would be something beyond that. So I do agree that like there's use cases for all of it. And then in the ideal world, it's kind of just this flow of like us slowly becoming your like full on copywriting team with like four senior writers at your disposal whenever you want. So it's a slow process. I don't think there's going to be as many people that just like automatically start at 3,700. They're going to want to see the work, but eventually that you kind of just like, it's just inevitable that it's like, hey, we're working with you all the time, we like your writers, we want you to kind of be more of a part of our team, and then
Mhm.
we get embedded that way.
Now, since we set up the the stage right now, like where does the AI comes into all of this, and why, based on your messaging and based on where the company is heading, essentially you're battling at the AI and say like, all right, there is no AI here, written by human, not AI. Why? Can you talk to me through the logic behind it and why you decided to sort of like differentiate yourself that buywords is not an AI company, right?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at most copywriting agencies right now, a lot of them won't go out on a limb and say like we're not going to use any AI, right? Like I think like our biggest differentiator right now is that we say we do not use AI. I would pretty much guarantee that most copywriting agencies are to some level. They might not be doing it where they're just not. It's like human plus AI. I'm sure there's a plenty of those agencies out there right now. Um, we're just saying human writers only. And in a world where like AI is kind of starting to annoy people a little bit, like you go onto your LinkedIn feed right now and you see all of this like generic crap as you scroll, and it's like, okay, AI definitely wrote that. You get a cold email in your inbox. It's like, okay, AI definitely wrote that. You read a very generic blog. You're like, oh, they probably just outsourced that to SEO AI company, right? And we launched buyWords at such a cool time where like all of that had already happened and people are kind of getting sick of this like AI copy, AI content world where now you come in and you say like, hey, here's a novel idea. Like we're not going to use any AI at all. And that's one that's going to attract like the best copywriters. They're going to want to come work for you because there's a movement right now, right, with writers where they're like, hey, I don't want to lose my job to AI. Like I want to prove that I'm creative and I can compete with these robots. And then there's plenty of like startups and companies out there that are just like I said, sick of the AI craze, and they want to like put out content and put out blogs that are like authentically them, written by humans. So um, I just think it's like a very interesting time. If we would have launched like a year and a half ago, I don't think
Mhm.
it would have been received as well. Like we kind of had to allow AI to like kind of like just be like AI everywhere.
Yeah.
And then we kind of sneak in and be like, hey, by the way, we don't use any AI. And all of a sudden that captures like so much attention and people get excited about it. So I just think the timing in general has just been like really, really smart for us. And like we were talking about potentially launching last April, but I truly believe that like launching now in October, like giving a couple more months to continue to let ChatGPT like write all of these posts and like show people what that content looks like. Like we gave the time for that to happen, and then we came in, and I think so far the timing of it has been really, really well received.
Last 2 years, there's a lot of anxiety from writers, like, oh, we're going to be replaced by AI. Everyone is talking about this, right?
Yeah.
Now we're 2 years in ChatGPT, everyone is using it, and then the human writing is more popular and is, you know, so so the question is for you, how did the writers receive, how did the writers responded to, or just generally engaged with the brand when they saw
Yeah.
buywords coming out?
Well, we launched a week ago, and
Mhm.
I must have gotten over 100 emails and DMs from copywriters that are essentially saying like, heck yeah, like we want to be a part of this. And it's kind of like showing me what kind of movement we can create here for creatives and writers in general. Like when we launched, it was like, oh yeah, let's go tell all of our network and all the companies that we're connected to. So hopefully they'll become clients, right? And that's part of it.
Right.
But I saw like another thing happening where it's like, oh, there's not just a hunger from potential clients, there's a hunger from all of these writers. So it's
Mhm.
showing me that like one, all of the copywriters out there, like one, there is like this general small anxiety about what AI can be and what it can do. But also it's like they want to be a part of this thing and they want to band together and they want to kind of fight back, right? There just hasn't been a platform or a company that has come out and just like been as loud as we are about like no AI writers, human writers only. Um, so yeah, and like it's been probably 4 days since we launched, or maybe a little bit more, but 100 plus writers have already reached out and be like, "How do I get involved?" Like, "Hey, love what you're doing, love the website. Like, please let me know if I can help." And that's been like the most refreshing part of this entire launch week has just been hearing from writers that are just like, "This is so cool, let me be involved," which like that made me very happy.
What do you think the competitive advantage of the writers are comparing to the AI? Obviously, the writers are less affordable, so.
Yeah, well, I think AI will always have like the speed factor, right? Like we have
Mhm.
the tagline on the website, like copy so fast you'll think we used AI, copy so good you'll know we didn't. Like AI will always be able to uh, write something in, I mean, seconds, right? So you always do have that speed factor, and I don't want to pretend like I'm not aware with how impressive some of this tech is. You know, like I'm totally aware that I can log in to ChatGPT and they can spit something out in 5 seconds. Um, the question is like, is it working? Is it converting?
Mhm.
And that's really what I think is going to come down to it, especially in my world and like the conversion copy world and the cold email world. Like if you can get an AI to write your cold emails and like you're just killing it with responses, like by all means keep doing it like that. I'm not going to stop you. Um, I truly believe it'll come down to like who can convert more, and I'm willing, and especially in the cold email world, like cold email world, I'm willing to compete with AI with my emails versus what they're spitting out right now. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to be like it's quality and then it's conversions, right? Like those are going to be the benchmarks always. Is like is the quality the same? Okay, well who's converting better? And it's just competition. I totally see it as
Mhm.
that. I know some people like say like, oh, it's AI plus human. You don't have to compete, and I agree with that take too. But I think for our brand, it's like, can we compete with quality with AI? 100%. Can we compete with conversions? 100%. Um, can probably they beat us in timing because they can get something out in like 5 seconds? Yes, and that's speed, and they'll always have speed, the bots, right? But it's speed, quality, and conversions, and those are we kind of have to win over here with quality and conversions, and give speed to AI because I can't write 1,000 word blog in 20 seconds, right? So it's like you have speed, quality, conversions. We just have to win the two over here, and we're good. And I think creative writers everywhere like that, they should feel good about that. They have an advantage there. Um, so yeah,
I love that, the fact that you've opened up with creative writing, that there are two different type of companies: those that won't just outsource, they do exactly what they've done already and just kind of do more of it, which AI potentially can do, right? You can feed
yeah,
the AI, here's what I'm doing, do similar things, right? And then you
hmm,
can say, I need a fresh perspective. And then I am so confident that in the nearest future, AI won't be able to give that fresh perspective or that fresh creative
exactly.
ideas that you can utilize to be able and be bold with things, right? And yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and I think like that's why like the future of copywriting, like it's thinking about yourself less like a copywriter, because maybe AI will fill in as a copywriter, but they won't fill in as the creative writer. Like that's where a human will always have an advantage. And that's why like I don't think copywriters have to get like so nervous about AI, because if you're a great writer, you're very creative. And human creativity is like what is like never going to be, in my opinion, at risk to AI. And writing is it's all just like pen to paper, right? So it's like you have creativity and then you write it down and it goes on. So it's all, if you're a great writer, you're just a great creative. So just holding on to that creativity, calling yourself more of like I'm a creative writer, less of a copywriter, like it's, and I think in this AI world we're transitioning, copywriters need to jump from like I'm a copywriter to I'm a creative writer and lean into that creativity, and that's how they'll win and stay ahead.
I think we always mistaken creative writers and writers for the um SEO copywriting, where you just kind of wanted to, to take advantage of Google algorithm and just get your page position, and that's why you're creating more generic, not in depth, and just kind of, more of the same, just to
Yeah,
kind of trick the algorithm, where versus like focus on the conversion, focus on the result on, and then that's why you have the, the creative part being more dominant in this, right? And now with AI, where you have access to this massive, cheap writing that anyone can do, and then we've seen that on our news feeds, and we've seen that on companies' blogs. More and more companies, in my opinion, will be focusing on how we can bring that creative component back in the play, and say like, and then that would be their differentiator. So I think like more businesses would look at their writing as, oh, we need to have more creative writing because we wanted to stand out, right? We wanted to differentiate ourselves. Like if it's not as important the consistency part or the volume part, like a good example is try and, post a daily post on LinkedIn with your AI, make it 10,000 posts. All of the posts will be generic. You're probably not going to be successful with this, right? But then trying to be creative writers and always improving on your writing and generating fresh ideas and fresh formats, and then doing this consistently will lead you to somewhere, right? So I think like with brands, that will be the same. So everyone have this new toy, which is AI. Oh, let's try to take advantage of the algorithm. Let's try to take advantage of the volume. Let's just optimize everything. Let's just, fire the writers, do the chat GPT, do some other tools. Let's just get a bunch of AI tools, train them, and then let's do the blog, let's do the case studies, let's do all of that. But in a month or years of using that, you just lose face, right? Like there's no fresh ideas, there's no creativity, there's no new formats, there's always the same. And then you're blending with other companies doing the same, and now you don't have a brand, right? So you don't have the anything. Now, with the creative copywriting and with creative people, you always create and adapt to the changes and just kind of generate a fresh perspective all the time. So your brand is fresh, your content is fresh, your videos are fresh, your scripts are fresh, your ads are fresh, and you just kind
Yeah.
of create that fresh outlook. And I love the fact that you took it for yourself and the buyWords team to sort of like lead the charge with like, okay, we wanted to be different. We wanted everyone to show that everyone is different. The companies are different, and we need to kind of gang together to, to create a certain second opinion of like that. No AI, and I'm doing the same with AI SDRs. Like I hate the AI SDR part of things,
Yeah.
right? When you essentially are equipping companies to send massive volumes of emails that are generic and that have poor conversions, and then all companies like Google and Microsoft, they are putting the extra protection on the email, and then no one have access to the email as a channel because of the volume and stuff. So, and the same with writing. And then now having people like yourself that are leading the charge from the opposite point of view, like, hey, let's just do better writing, let's just, and then let's not think it as an AI as an option for us to use, but rather like utilize it for something else, something that we don't want to spend time. Like I heard a lot about companies, and I'm doing that myself, is utilizing AI for the research part, right? That's something that is more generic, or like building some outlines for me, for example, or something like that, but not an actual creative part. So
Yeah, like, dude, I'm gonna go for a run later today, right? And I'm gonna clear my mind. I'm gonna feel really good. And I'm probably gonna have like 6 ideas for a client's project that are gonna come up into my head while I'm on that run. And I'm 100% positive that AI has no idea what those ideas are, right? So like my unfair advantage is that like as long as I don't put a chip in my brain, like an AI will never know what I'm thinking, right? Like my ideas will be my ideas only, and companies will always be able to buy that unique creativity that I have, right? And then you take buywords and then you add 10 other writers, 20 other writers, 100 other writers, and they all have their own fresh perspectives. And like that's what in the future people are buying into with buywords at scale, right? Like this team of like hungry senior creative writers that have a bunch of different ideas, and you're buying into that brand to get something fresh, something unique, something that you won't get anywhere else. Like I feel like AI is taking what they find on the internet and it's creating ideas from that. But they have no idea like about the human experience and what our
mm.
writers like saw on their run when they were running today, or experienced when they traveled to Guatemala, right? Like Ben, who's on our team, that dude just like traveled the world because he's a writer and he just wanted fresh experiences. Like he went to Guatemala, he went to Mexico, he went to Brazil. He was just traveling all around just to get like fresh perspectives on life to make him a better writer, right? And he's a great writer because of it. And like that human experience is like what makes us unique. So I'm betting on that side of the creativity world where we're going to be okay against AI because of that.
Do you have any advice for copywriters that are concerned about their roles being displaced with AI?
Um,
If
again,
you,
I
you
I think it's like when ChatGPT came out, I feel like every single copywriter got asked the question like, "Hey, have you heard of ChatGPT? Hey, like, are you worried about losing your job?" Like, I heard it all the time, right? Um, and in the beginning, I was like, "Yeah, kind of like this is weird. I don't know how to really react to it." But I think now, 2 years later, or whenever, however long it's been active and out there, right, with AI copywriters, you start to realize that as long as you're creative, you are your job security is much higher than someone who isn't creative, right? So like you look at more technical jobs and jobs that can be like replaced, I would be more concerned for those right now than a creative person who has a bunch of really, really cool ideas, right? Like writing is just the verb, but like before that is the creativity. So if I'm a copywriter, I'm not like that terrified about AI as long as I can leverage my creative self like deep into the future. You know, like that is how you compete with AI. It's
Mm.
creativity, human creativity. So if you're a great writer, you're already creative, so you shouldn't panic too much. Just keep being creative. That's how you do it.
What is the future going to look like for buywords?
Um, well, we have the platform. I want it to be. I seriously think it can be like this great movement for human authentication, human copywriters, human work, right? Like, I hope it inspires other companies to take similar approaches. But more than anything, I want to be a home for writers, for them to like senior writers to come to and like get excited about. Like, I want to be part of that movement in this like AI versus human world, right? And I think we're ahead of it. But yeah, I think the future of buywords is being like the head of that movement of human first AI, especially in the copywriting world. So I want copywriters to feel like they still have a home, that they can still find work, and ideally find that work through buywords.
Now, this is all great from the vision standpoint. Now, when you go down to earth with regards to the operational matters, like, now the buywords is live, you're building this business. So, what are your
Yeah.
plans in the next few years? What will be your focus at this point? And generally, what are the things that you're going to be working on, to be able to build the buywords in this next, unicorn or big successful business?
I truly believe that the most important part of Byword's long term success is not getting like the biggest logos and the biggest companies first. I think those will come. Like you and I both come from a demand generation background, like we understand how that works. Um, but like my main focus for 2025, 2026 is just making sure that we are attracting like literally the best of the best for writers. Like I want to have the Navy SEALs of copywriters at Bywords. So when people sign up, they know they're just getting the highest quality work. And on the other side, I want writers to be joining Bywords because they know like it's like a badge of honor, right? Like, oh, I write for Bywords, that must mean I'm quite good, you know? So it's more than anything, obviously I want to grow the company, I want to get clients, I want to get business, and we will do that. Get the awesome logos. Like that's our background. So I think we both feel pretty confident there. But like maybe more importantly is just like making sure that the world's best writers truly work at Bywords and they're excited to work for Bywords. If we can do that, everything else gets way easier. You know, like if you can attract the best talent, like the best clients will also come because of that. So it's just starting this movement, creating this brand, getting writers excited, um, getting the senior writers in, and then also creating that like the training programs for future writers to be the Navy SEALs of Bywords, right? So um, yeah, for me, it's writers, and the rest will fall into place if we get that right.
I love it. I'm a huge believer, and I always spoke about the importance of the good team that behind the brands and behind logos and behind the growth, and the fact that your focus would be on bringing those best people on board and working with them towards that bright future is, again, this is one of the reasons why I put my flyers into your into your field basically. And the fact that I was very excited about this venture and supporting you and the bywords team to be able to for you guys to just create this amazing things. Um, so we didn't talk a lot about the entrepreneurship part of the journey, but I think that we will keep this for the second interview, maybe a few months down the line
Yeah,
to be able to see the progress of buyWords.
totally.
Kevin, I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I I love to engaging with you and working with you, and I'm very excited about the what you're building with buyWords. And thank you for great conversation and for taking the time to being part of the from zero to agency hero. And you guys are building an agency hero company, so kudos to that.
Cool. You too. And yeah, it's my first podcast, so it's an honor to do it with you.